And welcome everyone back to Brain Swap for May 6th. Yep, and over for May 6th, where we're doing a special episode tonight.
Not Cinco de Mayo?
No, not Cinco de Mayo. It is No Pants Day.
No Pants Day.
So,
well.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, come and join us. Take off your pants.
Exactly. And today we will be taking your questions. This is a question and answer time. So we're just going to be taking questions from the chat room and talking to folks about that and whatever folks want us to talk about. And we'll be asking questions of each other and of the universe and of life in general. Why do hot dogs come in packages of 8?
When did you become a cyborg?
I see this cyborg
guy here.
2.5 years ago. Actually, it was.
Hey, D.
Welcome to the chat room. Hey, Liquidus. Glad to see you both. So, yeah, we're here to answer your questions. We've both been anime fans for a long time. We've both been around the block and seen stuff. So, actually, let's start there. So, Evan, how did you get into anime?
Well, this guy came by and twisted my arm and said, "You're going to be an anime fan." No.
Happens to so many of us.
Let's see. Years ago, I was at a theater.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even before that, I started viewing on over-the-air broadcast television in the DC metropolitan area.
Okay.
Star Blazers. And in the afternoon, they'd have Ultraman. And I thought, these are cool shows. But I couldn't follow the Star Blazers because I always had to go off to school. So I'd see the beginning of it. And, the bus is coming. You got to brush your teeth. Stuff like that. And so I never got a chance to follow it. But I always enjoyed it because it had such an interesting story. And also the Ultraman was on in the afternoon. Of course, I was supposed to be taking a nap. Way back in the day when they played that stuff on air.
Then what got you into anime as kind of a fan? So, somebody kind of knew what anime was and was consuming it. You're buying DVDs.
As a fan. Well, I added that to my anime experience, but I wasn't really a fan at that point. I thought, oh, this is cool. I'm a kid. I don't know, anime. What is that? That wasn't even a term then. Of course, years later, Galaxy Express came out in a theater that I went to, and as a young kid, I saw it, which was kind of surprising.
Yeah,
because it's it's animated, so it must be a kids movie, right? And I thought, this is cool. And I would go to stores at the mall and I'd see posters for it. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And I'd stop by the gaming stores, the TSR stores, and of course, all the novelty stores like Spencer's and consuming pop culture. But at that point, I still wasn't, say, an anime fan.
Okay.
The term wasn't really being used much. Japanimation had been kind of tossed around a little bit. And there was a lot of animation on TV. But after I went through school, my brother had come to live in the townhouse that I was living in, and he put up a NGE poster. And I was like, what is this stuff? It looks like Japanimation. Oh, no, that's not a term we use. Anime.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's kind of neat. Well, whatever. And I kept doing my stuff. But
and NGE being...
Neon Genesis Evangelion, Galleon, whichever you're... Hard G, soft G. And hey! Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So it wasn't until I started watching Adult Swim and Toonami that I started realizing, hey, this is pretty cool stuff. I put it on in the background while I'm cleaning the garage. I'm like, well, I'm not just listening to this. I'm getting into this show. This is pretty cool. I want to watch it back to back in a row so I can make sense of this story because this is pretty cool. And at that time, they were doing stuff like Trigun and Big O and some other things like that. And I started thinking, this is pretty cool. And I'll watch this whenever I can. But even then, I wasn't really an anime fan.
Okay.
I'd say I'd probably consider myself an anime fan when I went to my first convention.
Interesting.
I'd heard conventions are really cool, nice place to meet people, and at that point, I was like, okay, I'm definitely an outsider. I'm feeling kind of weird going here, but I'll experience the culture. And so I experienced the culture, drank the punch, and now I'm here.
Yeah, cool. So we got some stuff coming up in the chat room. I just scroll back to get everything in here.
Wow, let's go.
So oops. Liquidus is asking. We were talking about how much anime you should buy. Yeah. Well,
afford it, right?
Well, specifically in terms of versus pirating or streaming or illegal version, whatever. How much of your anime collection, Liquidus asks, should you upgrade VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, etc.? That's a good question.
That's a tricky one. Yeah. Well, I always like the DVDs because they have all the extras in a spot where I can get to them easily, especially when they do something with some voice actors or studio or behind the scenes and how's this made.
And that's interesting because even if you upgrade, you may not get the same thing that was on
it could be different. You won't have to fast forward to get to it, but I might not even be there.
That's a good question. I mean, so personally, I don't mind lower quality versions of things. So I can watch something on VHS if that's all I have available. I don't need to upgrade a DVD or Blu-ray. The issue with VHS is that it's getting so the tapes are degrading so badly.
Yeah, you got to repack them. You got to keep them out of magnetic fields.
Even ones I've only played a few times.
Oxide starts to come off and clog the heads of your VCR. You got to worry about stuff like that. And who are you going to get to clean it?
Exactly.
What, you're not going to buy a new one? Maybe at the thrift shop.
And even DVDs and Blu-rays have a certain lifespan.
Yeah.
So I definitely. I think I've upgraded all my VHS tapes to DVD. I still have some of the VHS tapes, but I think I have DVD copies of all of them. And then I backed up all those too. So just in case.
I think I have a bunch of Dragon Ball Z VHS.
Nice. Exactly.
It's fun to give things to people who can appreciate them.
Yeah.
So for me, when I can upgrade and I have a VHS copy, it's always joyous for me to share my extras with somebody else who might be a fan or really digs the stuff or the technology. I mean,
and I have a few things that were only ever released on VHS, so that's part of the problem too.
Time to burn those to disc.
I don't know how. We'll talk about that. We'll make that happen. D asks, "What's up with the they're not really siblings theme? They're cousins. They're not related by blood, so it's okay for them to be boyfriend, girlfriend, and get up to sexy stuff." Yeah. Honestly,
well, if they're not blood related, then it's not incest. Technically, is that?
So let's just.
Where are we starting from?
So here's the thing. Those topics are usually in anime series that are meant to appeal to a prurient taste, right? They're usually there for sexy time, and that particular branch thereof is such a taboo that it's exciting, but then by kind of backpedaling and make them not really blood related, it's not quite as gross. So it's a way of kind of having your cake and eat it too, so to speak.
That's a good way of putting it, because it is going up to the taboo and entertaining that and then pulling back from it, saying, no.
Now, granted, earlier in Japanese history, it was more common for more closely related people to marry. So first cousins, things like that. And there are stories like aunts and uncles and things like that.
And I think with mortality, you'd probably want to keep the family together.
And you had very small towns.
And small towns on the transportation, keeping everything. And so I would say probably not even just Japan, but a lot of places.
Very true. So I think it's one of those things where it used to happen to an extent, and so it's kind of back there in the back minds of the culture. And so it's a convenient thing to kind of throw out there. D also asked, "Do you get as frustrated as I do when you see people suggesting Adult Swim, that Adult Swim air shows from over a decade ago that already aired on Adult Swim multiple times. Yeah, I hear you there. You know, I don't think Adult Swim needs to re-show Cowboy Bebop. As fun as it is and as great as it is,
there's a lot of other stuff. It's like when radio stations play the same cuts from the artists. Yeah, I like, you know, The Who and AC/DC, but they never get some of the deep cuts. You know, they only play the stuff that I've heard a million times. Play the stuff on the B side of the record, you know?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, D. I mean, you know, they don't understand that that Hulu or Netflix exist and Crunchyroll exists. And there's plenty of places to get this stuff now. Now, granted, I do get the fact that Adult Swim has by far the largest audience. And so there is value in that will attract eyeballs that Hulu and Crunchyroll don't.
And some people who are just new to the whole anime genre may benefit from it. And it's, you know, their friends have been talking about this for years, and it's finally on. They wouldn't have sought it out otherwise.
What's sad is, I don't know if you guys remember back when Adult Swim did their Giant Robot Week. So they preempted their programming and they did back-to-back 2 episodes of different Giant Robot series all week. So 10 different shows over the course of a week. Really cool. So they had Evangelion, they had Escaflowne, I think, they had Nadesco, they had like Gigantor, they had Robotech. This whole smorgasbord. And the idea was they were going to get it out there and then those would be kind of teasers and they'd see what people really liked. And then they can kind of go and, you know, license those or whatever. And it didn't work very well. People didn't watch the. What surprised them? The lowest rated of all 10 of those, Robotech. I know.
Whoa.
And they're like, we consider this to be like the greatest action cartoon of all time, practically. And for some reason,
all the fans of Robotech have already purchased it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably. But yeah, that's very, very weird.
You know, it would be great if they had their own channel.
Yeah.
Or an anime channel. Just, you know. But their model is almost appointment TV unless you go to the website. So there's a whole different like struggle for the way that we get media right in that. Because of the limited output, they have to pick and choose. And where Netflix and Hulu are video on demand, they can keep the catalog as much of spinning data as they can afford to keep spinning.
And that's why, like, I think it was good that Adult Swim or I forget if it was Toonami or Adult Swim showed Kill la Kill, because that was one of those big, you know, hot, well, you know, popular thing among the fans. Putting it on Adult Swim, let all those folks who had heard about it or curious about it actually watch it. And that's the kind of like appointment TV you want.
Yeah,
that folks can tune in and experience this thing and hopefully get into the fandom a little bit. What's your favorite Pokemon?
Pikachu. Just because it's so
fair enough. Mine's Meowth, I have to admit. Meowth's personality is
I'm gonna catch them all first and
there we
figure
are.
out, you know, because there's so many different aspects.
I have a little Meowth beanie somewhere. I like that character so much.
I know I'm going with this mainstream.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's see here. See here.
Somebody was having a ball there.
Yeah.
4K anime. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Higher resolution anime.
Yeah. And yes, there is some anime being made in 4K, but very little because the anime studios have not yet upgraded to that equipment yet. It's not worth their time to export to that format. Because it's more expensive, there's more storage costs, and
I hate to boil it down to business, but the ROI, the return on investment, is not there yet. So
exactly.
once it becomes worthwhile for them financially to make that leap, they'll probably do it. But that being said, it would be nice to see more titles.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And you know, yeah, and you're absolutely right, Fisher. You know, the problem with the whole cycle of new media is that generally you have you know, new media comes out all the time. Not all the time, but you know, as soon as you get your Blu-rays, then you have other stuff. And this is why I think it's important to realize that you are going to have a variety of formats. Like, never expect that you're going to, you know, just get everything in Blu-ray and that's all you're ever going to need for the rest of your life.
The next format will come out next and supersede it, and you'll have to repurchase everything again, and it'll be twice as much, but it'll be worth it. That expanded dynamic range, the 22 channels of audio with 8 different languages, so now you can learn Swahili by watching the show that you already know.
Totally. Also asked, would you like to read a manga that tests your morals? Yes, I do that frequently.
In fact, quite often, I watch stuff that is not necessarily in concert with what I believe, just to see how they tell the story and see where they take it. Sometimes a story starts off in a direction that I'm pretty opposed to, and it's hard to kind of break out of, well, where are they going with this? Because okay, are they trying to tell a story, or are they just trying to offend me? But it's not too often that it seems like they're just trying to offend me. I think that's kind of the realm of like shock musicians, where they try just to get a reaction. Well, they have an audience though, and with anime, it's not so much. Their audience is they don't get the direct feedback.
Well, and there's a difference between shocking and testing out your moral beliefs. There's certainly plenty of stuff which presents oh my gosh, this guy's so depraved. That's not really testing my morality. It's just showing somebody who is weird. And I can read that or not, but it just you have to present an alternate morality that is reasonable and understandable, and that tests you. That says, okay, now I understand where this person's coming from. What does that mean? Good examples of that are from Yoshihiro Tatsumi's manga. He loves to throw moral quandaries at the reader. We were talking the other day about a segment where a young man in World War II is sent to photograph Hiroshima after the bomb dropped. And he takes a photo of burned into the wall, an image of a woman and a son. And they start to make a memorial of it. And he comes to realize that that's actually a murder.
That wasn't the son.
Yeah. The woman was being killed by a young man. And it completely flip-flops the whole symbolism of that for him. And then he wonders, do I tell anyone? Like, there are thousands of people.
This is a memorial showing how terrible one thing is, but it's not depicting what we thought it was. It's now depicting a terrible thing reflecting a terrible thing.
And I won't spoil what happens at the end, but as he's going back to meet the person who tells him this, going over in his head over and over is 100,000 people were killed. 100,000 people were killed. 100,000 people were killed. What's one more? And you're like, oh no.
That's quite a moral dilemma there.
Yeah.
That's you almost get into, well, I wouldn't say necessarily Machiavellian, but to some degree, do you go with the mythos and falsehood, or do you go with truth and throw the apple cart over and destroy all the hope that was generated?
What's the greater good?
What's the greater good?
There's a great line from a recent episode of Doctor Who, where somebody is kind of pulled back from death, and somebody else is castigating the person for doing this and not explaining to them the full import of what's happened, and says, you're giving her hope. And he goes, since when was hope a bad thing? And she says, hope is a terrible thing on the gallows. And it's that dilemma of, yes, it's nice to feel these feelings, but sometimes when they're false, it can be even worse for you. So yeah, I love those things, but it has to be done well. Favorite Digimon? I couldn't answer that.
Further. Okay. This one is interesting. D mentions not enjoying the super high definition TVs. What's interesting is because of the eye's ability to resolve detail, when you start getting up into the 4K displays, you have to be really close to notice a significant difference between a 4K display and HD progressive display. And So you end up sitting closer and closer to get the benefit. So if you're sitting real far away from these ultra high def TVs and you look at another one that's right next to it that's a high def TV, you might not notice the real difference until you get up close. So a lot of it depends on viewing distance also. So a lot of people may end up purchasing them and saying, yeah, it's not that much better. Why'd I spend all this money? Well, it's viewing distance. Viewing distance makes a big difference. There's all sorts of environmental variables.
And something I harp on occasionally is, while we're talking about different media, one of the problems folks have is that they insist on getting material in the highest possible quality format, even when the source material isn't necessarily high quality. So you'll get a TV show from the 60s, you know.
It was originally shot in something completely different.
And it's like, yeah, you can go up to 4K. It's not going to look much better than a DVD. So you got to be aware of that. Now, obviously, you can do restoration and such. But a lot of times, like, no, they slapped it on there. You're not really getting much when you can go there. What do you think about
that? Oh my. Nice. Thank you.
That's great. So Liquidus asks one of the most important fundamental questions. Besides buying the anime itself, or a lot of cases, companies wanting you to buy the manga, does buying all the merch support little or a lot to the series? Figures, video games, clothes, etc. How much does merch matter? From what I can tell, not massively.
In the US?
At least in the US. In the US, thank you. In the US, the problem is that merch comes through so many different hands. It is so far removed from the original companies that any significant profits are massively diluted by the time it gets back there. They're not paying that much attention to how many sales of One Piece figurines are selling in America because it's such a relatively small market, and because it's going through lots of third parties. It's certainly good. I would never discourage people from doing it, but it seems like disc sales are more significant
because that influences the licensing and relicensing areas more, at least here in the US. And at the same time, there's the promotional side of things. I mean, if somebody gets a figurine and never invites anybody over and says, hey, this is from this anime, nobody's gonna know, and they're not gonna say, hey, I gotta go out and watch this or buy it.
That's a really interesting point. I think you're absolutely right that one of the advantages of disc sales is that it has at least more potential for to generate more fans. A Naruto headband or keychain or whatever doesn't generate as much interest as that, or as many opportunities for that. Hey, let's all sit down and watch this thing. So yeah, but it definitely depends. And now it is a little bit different too with some things like Pokemon is a good example. Pokemon is so international that they do look at those international sales. So they're paying attention to, and obviously, the video games for Pokemon are more important than the anime anyway.
What country consumes the most Pokemon?
Good question.
They're driving the market. The market in Pokemon.
Almost certainly Japan. But yeah. So Master Chief Snake asks about crossover licensing. And this is interesting. So what crossovers are there sort of in anime and such? And the big one I know of is certainly Super Robot Wars. There's a video game series where you fight in giant robots, and they've licensed large swaths of anime for things. So you can, you'll have Evangelions and Gundams and Valkyries from Macross and Ideon and just you name it. All these things will all be in the same game because early on they started this thing and it became kind of an institution. So it's easier for them to license it because it's like, oh, it's Super Robot Wars. Sure, you can have the license for it. But it doesn't happen that much outside of that. Now, that said, for example, Bandai owns so many properties that they can come out with a game and kind of cross over within themselves and still hit a bunch of different things.
So the chances are better for a game than for an anime series to start doing that.
Exactly. And you also have to think about the profit motive for an anime. You know, every second of that other anime character on screen is not a second promoting their own characters and stuff. Yeah. So crossovers don't really do much for you.
I used to read the cartoons in the newspaper, and I used to really enjoy it when they'd have a certain week where everybody would cross over into other strips, and it was really cool. It was like sharing all sorts of universes that never seemed to join, and it would be fun to see that.
In anime and manga, they can get away with more cross references in a sense of cross references. So you can have, you know, a plushie will show up. In Azumanga Daioh, actually no, Full Metal, Lucky Star. Lucky Star is what I think of. Famously, they have references to Full Metal Panic and other things made by the same anime studio. So they'll put in, you know, again, a plushie or a figurine sitting out there somewhere. But Lucky Star also has things like there's a Haruhi crossover. There's a Miku costume shows up. So they can kind of throw that out there. That's kind of fun. What was the worst anime you've ever seen?
Worst in which way?
Yeah.
Worst in...
I can think of some porn, but I'm not going to go there.
Worst story-wise? Worst...
Yeah. For me, the worst story-wise, and we're going to probably get into an argument about this, is Rin, Daughters of Nendo-san.
Oh, that was great. It was so disgusting. I was looking. So my first exposure to this was at a convention, and I'm in a dark room filled with other people, and I'm looking at the screen going, what the hell am I watching? These people sitting next to me, they're watching it too. Are they as disgusted as I am? This is sick. Oh, are you people all? Well, I'll keep watching. And then I went out and bought the series. But yeah, I mean, it was, if yeah, and I mean, I can see where that
I mean, only plot wise, you know, the animation is fine, all kind of stuff. My problem is that there is a fundamental conceit to the story, i.e. there's some fundamental thing that identifies the characters, and everyone seems to forget about that one thing all the time. Like, okay, so spoiler alert, although this is kind of back in the box stuff, several of the characters are immortal, and people keep like shooting them and saying, yay, they're dead. They must be dead now. Or dropping buildings on them and saying, yay, I finally got you. It's like, no, you didn't. They're immortal. And it's fine if, and this is something, you know, you learn as you do other media. It's fine if it's like, we need to get to that place. So we're going to drop buildings on you and do all sorts of other stuff so we get there first. That's fine. That's interesting. But when it's just head-to-head fighting and you know they're immortal, you got to give me something more than that.
That does kind of.
So, and for 5 like hour-long episodes,
at least with Highlander, there could only be one.
Exactly. Right. Love Highlander.
Yeah.
Do you have a?
You know, it's hard to say that I have any one particular series. I'm not a big fan of filler and recycling suspense to the point where I lose interest. And I felt that Bleach got a lot of attention and it was exciting for a while, but when they started rehashing the story, I felt like I spent a half hour and they have moved this plot forward nothing. Why did I waste my time? I could have tuned in next week and gotten my laundry done and not be late for work and stuff like that. Do you have
any specifics?
Particular episodes, I don't.
Particular shows.
Oh well, Bleach.
Yeah. You know, you're not the only one.
I did like some of the stuff that they did with it, but the way that they lost me earlier on when they started putting in too much excess stuff.
I love the manga. I bought like the first 10 volumes of the manga after just doing like the first 1 or 2. I loved where they were going, and then it just kind of derailed off into just kind of, like you say, not a lot of stuff happening. It's very sad. Other worst anime, and I know I'm gonna be forgetting some. There's
I tried not to remember the worst ones.
There was one which was kind of interesting and is worth checking out for the fans of alone. It's called Piano. It's an OVA from, I don't know, the 80s, early 90s, and there's so the main character is a girl who's teleported to some fantasy world where there's a giant tentacle monster and it's not that kind of anime. And they're trying to stop it. And they find out the music stops it. And so there's a line where a character says, of course I am playing because I'm trying to make the monster sleep with my piano. And you just look at that and you think,
I'm going to bore this monster to death with my playing.
Yeah. No. I'm trying to make this monster sleep with my piano.
Wait, sleep with
my piano. And obviously that wasn't the intent, but just everybody heard that line and just burst out laughing. And it was just, what? And it's a giant tentacle monster. So that kind of comes to mind. It was just lots of that kind of, that just, you didn't really think about your language there. It was really bizarre. But yeah, now that you asked, I know there have been some I've watched. I was like,
there are certain parts where some anime lag and then they pick up again, and that's kind of what I've found with a lot of them, because I always find something interesting, some aspect of it, but it's hard to say something's really bad from every angle.
Right, exactly.
It usually doesn't make it past the.
Exactly, yeah, and then like they were saying in the chat room, you do eventually drop a show that you don't like. I don't like hate watch shows.
I have dropped a bunch of shows that I like just because time and I get sidetracked and then I'm like, oh dang, what was that show that I was watching? It was so good and I can't remember my path to get back to it.
Yeah. Time sucks. It's really frustrating. But yeah, it's it's toughy. Penny Pony Dash. That's a weird one. I love that show, but it's very weird.
What was the one that we saw at the convention that was it was like a mashup of genres?
Oh geez.
It was
what was that? Oh dear.
We saw something that was a combination of several different things, and I couldn't tell if it was just parody for parody's sake or if it was just
that was
the
amazing.
Ranch or what.
I'm scrolling through my collection now, see if I can remember it, because I want you guys to know about this anime.
Sometimes you find these gems. Like, where did this come from?
Not that one. Not that one. It's got to be here somewhere.
It's fun to watch some obscure stuff and really old stuff. And I know that a lot of people would find it not too fun to watch, but historically or technically or just in storytelling are really exciting. And so some of those I can see, if you don't take them in context, are horrible.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, the technology, the budget, what they were doing with limited stuff, that's pretty cool that they did that. And they actually were able to tell a story. So there's some like that.
Shattered Angels. Yeah. Ordinary high school girl. I don't want to tell you anything about it actually. Just
check it out for yourself. It's
Shattered Angels. It's out there and it's out there. It's everything.
It's out there. That's a good way of saying it.
Absolutely.
It's out there.
Totally.
Yeah.
So good question, Liquidus. Why has Latin America's market in the past seemed to have taken care of anime better than the US did? Television is a main reason. They showed a lot more anime on TV than we did. And a wider variety. So they showed a lot of the giant robot shows, Mazinger, things like that, made it over there more broadly. A lot of that stuff got licensed and shown. And it showed for a long time. We have a tendency to air a show and then move on to something else, and whereas they would rebroadcast it. So those shows became
building generations of fans.
Absolutely. And so a lot of Latin American countries absolutely built these long-standing things. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the it has a very different flavor than it has, say, in North America or in Japan, because you have a different set of cultural touchstones. But absolutely, yeah, it is really interesting that they have managed to keep that going. Also, and there's something I don't know about, and I'd love folks to kind of write in about, is I don't know what the media landscape was like. It could be that they only had, a couple of networks for a longer time, that they, didn't branch out into lots of
we
networks,
used to have the big
channels.
3 networks, and then maybe a bunch of small privately owned stations here and there that would show stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how was that in Latin America and other countries around the world? I'm kind of curious. It would be fun to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do you buy your anime?
What am I? Amazon.com. pretty much entirely, and conventions.
I conventions. I got to say, most of mine I buy from conventions. And you know what? Surprisingly enough, I buy a bunch of anime at used bookstores.
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes people will get rid of their collections and they'll end up in the bookstore. And some of the bookstores will charge quite a bit for it, but it's better cost than buying it new. And I feel at least I'm, recycling. I don't know. It's a good way to check something out without investing too much. And if I'm a big fan, hey,
Exactly. And one of the reasons we both buy at conventions is because that's supporting either the company
vendors,
itself,
the convention,
but also the vendors. Exactly.
And the selection that you get there is really nice, and there's nothing like having somebody at a panel recommend something. You say, "Oh, that's pretty neat. I got to check that out." You go down to the dealer's room and there it is. And, I'm going to get it. It's right here. While it's hot, fresh in my mind, I can get this and check it out.
I've had some great experiences where I've been able to recommend obscure anime and say, I have seen it in the dealer's room and there is one copy.
Quick.
And then
Stampede.
Then I'd go down to the dealer's room in, later that day. And the guy would go, "You're the one.
You're the one. Everybody has been asking me."
Yeah. I got like 5 people come by asking for this thing. I was like, yeah, awesome. eBay is a great resource. If you're looking for anime, especially older and obscure anime.
Surprisingly, I've also found it on Craigslist. Sometimes a fan will liquidate their assets. They've decided they're growing out of the anime phase, or mom cleaned up their room while they were at college or something, and you'll find a stack of somebody who's upgrading from one format to another. I'm going all digital and I don't need hard copy. And sometimes you can find some good deals that way. Sometimes it's you kind of get even value. Sometimes you get a great deal.
Yeah. And if you're looking for one of the reasons I recommend Amazon is they often have used copies there as well.
Yeah.
So don't just think new when it comes to Amazon. And I say that not just because I used to work there.
Right Stuff. Yeah.
Right Stuff. Yeah. And they're big anime fans. So they're great.
I like the idea of Crunchyroll. Because you can get something before it's released here in the US and watch it. I just wonder how they're going to handle when they start doing the dubs.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a release with this is the quick release dub and this is the refined release dub?
I think the same that Funimation does. They're doing simultaneous dubs. So they'll just get the script, a couple weeks early.
I like the fast release, but sometimes you get a better product when you can mull it over and get the perfect polish and shine when you...
Like we were hearing about Bebop.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a shame. Another question: what medium did animators use when they drew the frames from an anime back when they were done hand drawn by cells? Paper and cells. So it would be drawn on pieces of paper, and then the paper would be photocopied onto acetate cells, and then those would be colored in and done. That was the medium. Literally, it was acetate cells. And Evan's going looking for some cells right now. I have some back at home, but I haven't had a chance to. I haven't brought them in yet.
Pay no attention to the man behind the screen.
So interesting that you say that Right Stuff protects their shipments better than Amazon. I haven't had that experience personally, but I don't disagree. That is quite likely. D asks, do conventions have a spread of like almost all anime over the past 15 years and mostly OVAs? It is a spread. I've been impressed. Oh, excellent. I've been impressed by how many, by the variety of anime shown at anime conventions. You'll see stuff from 30, 40 years ago. You'll see TV shows, OVAs, movies, whole variety. So yeah, absolutely. You will see a good. Now it depends on the convention. Some will focus more on more recent stuff. Usually there's like one con staffer who handles that, and they're the ones that decide what anime is showing, and they'll have their own tastes and they'll have their own things where they'll know, well, most of the folks coming to this con are going to be younger. They're not going to know about the older stuff, so we need to show stuff that's more current. So it depends on the con. How's Anime Shelf? I don't know who you're talking about.
I've heard the name. I haven't tried.
It's been a while since we last saw him many streams ago.
Many streams ago.
I don't know who you're talking about. That's interesting.
Anime fans gathered.
Yes, exactly.
Would you give the tour of the cells and such?
So here is a good example of an anime cell. What is this from? Is this Tenchi?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I've got to learn some more about these things.
I'm not sure, but it's a wonderful little comedic cell. That's probably about a C cell. They're graded A, B, C.
So I can put it in a flashlight, right?
Yeah. and that is the cell, but on and the nice thing is on the back there's the original pencil sketch. That'll be drawn initially and then photocopied onto the cell, and then the cell was colored. And we'll see if this is stuck. If it's stuck.
So this is in a plastic a sort of a plastic bag, but it's a
nice
acetate sheet with a paper sheet. And the acetate sheet, of course, is clear except for the part that was hand painted. So somebody has hand painted this character. And from the back, it's all kind of blobby and not very distinct where they painted it. But on the front, it's very sharp and crisp. And that's the angle that they use for photographing it for each individual
frame. Is literally what you saw on screen, just on top of a background.
Now, they may zoom in or zoom out or move it, have it slide across the screen. And Brent goes into all sorts of different techniques for the actual animation itself. But the pencil sketches set it all up. But one thing that's unusual that you may notice in some of these is there's a bunch of holes at the top.
Yes.
And with the holes, you might want to, I don't know if those are stuck together, but if they're not.
That's stuck.
Yeah, bummer. Okay, so sometimes the paint sticks. But if you notice, the holes are a particular shape and spacing. And these things are so that you can keep the frame exactly as you need it.
So there will be 3 sort of posts at the top of the animation board. And so these get slotted onto those posts. So every single one is in exactly the same spot. As you can kind of flip. And here's the sketch in the back. You'll notice also that there's an A5 on the front here, A5 in the corner.
Corners.
That tells you what layer and frame in the animation. So this means this is the top layer, the 5th drawing in the animation sequence, right there. And interestingly, yes, it is always drawn in English.
Perhaps you can show them this side first.
Okay.
Ask them.
Yeah. What do you think this might be? Does this look familiar at all? Can you guess what this might be? I will tell you, it was expensive.
It cost a pretty penny.
Absolutely. It cost a pretty penny. Why? Because probably now you recognize it. That's right.
They do use digital now, but this was back in the time of hand painted.
Yep.
And again, this is another. It's crisp on this side. On the other side, it's blobby and paint looking. So,
and part of the reason for that is that they have to paint backwards, right? So that they have to make sure that gray is nice and crisp, but then they can blob over top of it because that's in the background.
Speaking of backgrounds,
yes. Ooh.
Perhaps you can show them some of these. I think I've got a couple there, maybe.
Background. So this is a great one. I'm so glad you got these. So this is a background. So your anime would be put on this.
Have a character overlay.
Exactly.
Little person in front, or shouting or making a gesture or dancing.
And this is a great example because what they would do here is once the light goes on, you swap your background, and you have a different the quote unquote same background, but with all the lights switched on. So when you hear that chunk and all the lights switch on, they just switch to a different background, and that's what you get there. So you have your characters in front of it. It's great.
And let's see. Oh, these are some of my favorites. I wish I'd gotten more of these. This is from a very enjoyable series, and I think they're in some semblance of an order.
That's awesome. School Rumble?
Even better.
Ooh.
Azu.
Oh, Azu, of course. Sakaki right there.
Running track.
Running track. There's a little bit of, who is that?
Good old, what's her name? I'll never forget. Yeah, good one. Her name. Trigun, you got that earlier.
You got Trigun? Great.
Put the cell back in the plastic. That's funny. The red is very distinctive on
So you'll notice something here, actually. So here's a body, and we just got 2 images of her laughing. There's laugh 1.
The body shaking up.
And there's laugh 2 with a bit of the top body. So what? Yeah, exactly. That's what they're doing here. Is you're getting the body and the head separately for different drawings here. Here she is with. Well, actually, what's even more cool here? These are actually also partly test sketches, because those are just outlined to give them a sense of where those drawings should be.
Both teachers there.
Exactly.
Oh,
little racy one here.
Yeah,
exactly.
Uptide, don't worry about it. I've made some interesting things myself. So. Yeah, and so being able to animate somebody pulling their shirt off or dancing around, there's so many different things that make it look smooth, and variables that you have to take into account. Okay, so which way does the shirt flop, and is the hair this way or that way, and is there breeze, and what parts of their body need to move or not move?
Look at that.
Oh, the hair.
Look at that.
Is that Osaka next to her?
That is Osaka and Chio-chan right there. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And the classroom.
So now these things are a little bit harder for you guys to come by, because we have gone to digital for animation. Anime has gone to digital.
And here's a cleaned up version of that previous one.
Yeah.
Just for contrast. But yeah, exactly.
So, if you find these things, you may want to say, hey, yeah, I might grab a few of them, because they're not making any more of them. And it's an interesting, it's because it's so much easier with a digital medium to do the same thing. So kind of like the early days of, we find a stack of letters from grandma to grandpa and vice versa. There's not going to be a whole bunch of those early emails from grandma to grandpa, because no one was storing them, but now maybe they might be. But same with these.
Exactly. Oh, I just love this stuff. And then
that was when she was sleeping. Yeah.
More of the.
And there's notes and markups and things.
So this is.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah. Even some shading in there and.
Exactly.
Oops. That's the perfect pillow. That's the expensive pillow. It's too rich for a teacher.
Oh no, that's what that's from. The backgrounds.
The backgrounds. Oh, this is an interesting sketch from the markup of, here's the lighting grid, and here's all sorts of notes about how this thing should take off. And it's kind of, is that stapled together so you can see taped together? And so being able to get directions on there and what comes next, and they're all labeled in different order.
That's stapled.
As to direction. The yellow.
About that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go and get a copy of this.
Yeah. And then there's
on stage
a sketch of the characters on stage.
Yeah.
This is their layout drawing, literally, to show how everything's laid out.
Can you draw anime?
Me, no. I wish.
I draw a blank pretty well.
Exactly. Wow, that's amazing. And then here's
the
another
teacher chicks are the best. I like them. They're
shot of those characters. I love the dynamism of those characters in that shot. And so, also to that point, you've got here. So shot 111, presumably from Nana episode 4. There we go. Not sure what the C stands for. C11R.
Shot C or 111. Is that frames or right angle?
11 is almost certainly the shot in the episode. I don't know. There was one other here.
You and me both would love some sketches from there.
Yeah. C111A.
FLCL.
Oh, there we go. C111A and R.
A and R.
R in reverse, maybe?
Shot and reverse shot. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, must be.
Center.
You'll also note, one thing I love this is, you know, they very handily have title and number and C all across the top there, and they don't use it. Right, they got all the spaces for all that stuff, and it's just scribbled, you know, and notes around it.
Yeah,
that's real production.
That's real production. Okay, we need a bunch of these. Get them in order. That's a template.
Exactly. There you go.
Thanks. So that was a fun little our quick
yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks to Evan for letting us peruse his cell collection.
You should see his cell collection. Well, he's got some really good ones.
Scroll back through my YouTube channel for my video that scrolls through all of my stuff. Yeah, I love some sketches from FLCL as well, although that might have been digital. I think that was all digital.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was right around that time.
It was right around that time. I'm not sure. Yeah, drawing's tough. I've practiced a bit, but I'm certainly no good at drawing anime. Maybe sometimes. Maybe. I am perfectly happy with the number of people in this chat room. We have an awesome group, and I don't need 1,000 people. I want good people.
If you want to invite some friends, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not opposed to more. I can't wait for the new season. Yeah, that's more long time in coming. Mm-hmm. And contracted. That's amazing. Cool. It's gonna be interesting. What's the name of the doggy? How much is the dog in the window? Shinji. Ein. Yeah, there we go. this one right here. Yeah, there we go. It's a bird dog. It's a little duck with a dog nose on it. Cool. Yeah, all right. I think we have covered our topics pretty darn well. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. Yeah, this has been fun. A lot of fun. I think we'll have to do this more often. Yeah, some unstructured time where we can chat with everybody and just see what's going on. It's a good thing. So next week we'll be tackling a more controversial topic. Is Korean animation anime? Yeah. Many people are divided on this topic. And we certainly have strong opinions on that. Desert Fox asks, do we ever show a video from our anime collection? No, because YouTube would take us down. But we are pursuing other options. There may be a private party. Yes. At some point where we might be able to invite you all. So, of course, it's not for rebroadcast because we don't want to get in trouble with the industry that we love and support. So, if we had some friends over to virtually join us in another environment, we may be able to do something like that. Yeah, got to find the time. As always, that's the big problem. But yeah, all right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it very much, and we will see you guys next week, same time, 9:30 Eastern every Friday. Hope you will join us for more discussion. Thank you all. See you then. Thanks a lot.